Hi, this is Talie Warulkar, the anxiety coach. I am joined here today with Aviva to talk about her anxiety journey as part of a series of interviews that I am doing in order to take that shame lid off of anxiety. Hi, Aviva. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Talie.
So tell me, let's start. Where would you like to start? You know what? Let's start. What is your earliest memory of anxiety?
My earliest memory would be from when I was about 2 years old.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, we 2.5, almost 3. We moved from Canberra to Melbourne, and what I recall is that we moved to a new house, obviously, and I was taken out of my cot and put into a bed, a big girl bed. They took away my dummy. They took away my bottle. Now, I don't know if these were all at exactly. I don't know if it was all the same day, the same week, but it was over a period of time, like a very small period of time. The people I was meant to trust to look out for me just were not available, meaning my mum and my dad, right? Because they were moving interstate with 3 little kids, trying to get my oldest brother into school, me into kindergarten, and I don't know where David went.
What number are you in the family?
Number 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so my younger brother, I don't know he was literally a baby. He was still maybe 9 months old. So I remember, not that I would ever have called that anxiety, but looking back, that's, I'm sure, what it is. That's probably where everything started.
Yeah.
So a combination of being angry, feeling like I can't trust anybody, having to look out for myself.
And you were 2 at the time? And you remember
almost three.
Wow,
yeah.
That's incredibly young. And you remember all of this. Wow.
Well, part of it could be stories, but no, part of it is definitely a memory inside. Like there's something there. Yeah.
Wow. So tell us, how did it affect your childhood on the whole? Did you know that it was anxiety? Is that what you labeled it? So how did you feel?
I think for a while I became very quiet inside, right? Because it was a sense of not trusting, not being able to see what's going on, not knowing who to turn to, also being in a totally new place. So I think I started kindergarten and not knowing what the rules were, because the rules were very different than where I'd been before.
So how does that make you feel inside? Like, do you remember the feeling of it?
Very constricted.
Yeah.
Constricted would be the word I'd use. What else would there be?
Do you remember anything physiologically in your body?
I felt very insecure. Very, very insecure, and not knowing how to deal with things. I think they're very suspicious all the time. So in my body, I'm just looking back to this little girl who, I've got an image of her in my head. I don't think I was as free as what I had been when we'd been in Canberra.
Yeah.
My older brother, he was my rock. I mean, he would come and
how much older is he to you?
Not quite 2 years.
Okay.
So he was going into prep and I was in kindergarten. So he would come during, playtime. He would come and, stand at the fence and talk to me and stuff. So he was my rock. He was the only thing that was solid, that was consistent, I think, at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you say it affected your childhood? like moving forward from age 2?
I was very distrustful of people, very distrustful. So it would take quite a long time for me to warm up to people, but then it would also, the behavior would change in that, I'd put on this tough girl act. I was tough. I could do anything. But it was more to hide my insecurity than it was because I was, a tough girl. But that's the sort of name I got, was being tough, being things didn't faze me, but I think that was all actually a show, because inside I'm very, very shy.
Yeah.
So it was trying, it was putting out this outer persona just to hide the fact that I was very vulnerable.
And how old were you around this stage, would you say? Do you remember?
Probably about 7.
Do you remember any specific incidences, anything? Like, do you have maybe a story you can share with us?
I know that I actually put on a lot of weight in those years, like from probably grade 2, grade 3, I put on a lot of weight. And, I wasn't aware that I'd put on weight, but looking back, I can see that. And I think it was because I looked at food as a way to hide, and food was comfort. So I was always, I'd be eating, and I know that I would eat a lot. And I remember being very, very young, maybe 7, maybe 8, and Mum took me to see a dietitian or something. And, I remember she took my measurements, and she just said to Mum, well, because I was very round, so round is a shape, I was in shape. But she said, oh, no, she's going to have a great figure, because I was this square little box. But then she said, as you grow, your hips go out, your boobs go out, so the shape will take place, and kind of not to worry about it. But I remember that I couldn't go shopping, or Mum could never find clothes for me, which is something, wow, I haven't thought about that for a long time. But that was a problem, because they didn't, I didn't fit the standard clothes size, not for my age. So, for example, if I was 8, I would be wearing clothes for a 12-year-old, and everything was always too long and stuff, but nothing else would fit me. So I remember that being a bit of an issue. And so, of course, then there would be, I wouldn't want to go shopping because I would never find anything. And so I'd be embarrassed by that. But
would you say that was an anxiety trigger for you?
It probably was, yeah. Yeah, but again, I wasn't aware of the term anxiety.
Yeah.
So it was acting out, or it was other things, but anxiety just wasn't in my lexicon at all back then. Not at all.
Did you have like your own sort of made up name for that feeling? Like, how would you know that this is anxiety?
I don't know that I was aware of it.
Yeah.
In recent years, I've been doing a lot of work sort of internally and spiritually and stuff. And I was speaking to a girlfriend of mine who we went right through school together. And she knows me well, and she knew me well back then as well. And so she was very funny, because she was like, yeah, well, we knew that this was all an act. We knew that you weren't this, you weren't so tough. We knew that, because they also saw the soft side to me, but I wouldn't let that come out very often. But they were all very aware of it. My friends, they knew it. They knew that it was there. Yeah.
So funny.
But I actually was not aware that I was angry. And apparently I was a very angry kid. So call that anxiety, but it came out as anger.
Okay.
So I would be, I'd be fighting for justice of everything.
What were you angry about? Do you think that's stemming from your 2-year-old self?
Mm. Yeah, but again, I didn't even know that I was angry. I just thought this is the way we are.
It's up because we're younger. We're young, yeah.
Yeah, had no idea that that I was actually angry. No idea. Which I find fascinating.
Do you remember a specific incident, let's say in your teenagehood, that you felt anxiety?
There were times when I felt out of control.
Okay.
Right? I remember there was one time I was in the headmaster's office, which was a very common often in the headmaster's office.
Yeah.
But this one time I was sick and I had a fever and I wanted to go home. And I wasn't even able to express or to ask him permission to go home because I was sick. So I guess the anxiety was that I couldn't even find the words to ask for what I needed. Yeah. And I think that was also another, maybe 14, 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wasn't able. Also, we grew up in this kind of society that you were happy with what you got and you didn't ask for more. So that also fed into it because I was also a fighter. So if anything was unfair, then we had to fight for it, but we weren't allowed to ask for more. We had to be happy with what we had. So there was a whole lot of mixed messages.
There was a message, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of mixed messages.
Did you go home that day? Did you get to go home that day?
Yeah. Yeah. But I just remember being it killed me that I had to show him that I wasn't well. It killed me that I had to be vulnerable to say, I need to go home.
Yeah.
And so that, I remember that caused me a lot of, I suppose, anxiety. Yeah. Because it was very uncomfortable, a very uncomfortable place to be, and having to ask for something.
You didn't like asking for things? Oh, yeah, because you said you can't ask for more.
No, and I was tough. I don't need anything. I can make everything happen. I didn't want to rely on other people. Didn't want to rely on other people.
You said earlier that you had a distrust. Yeah.
Yeah. So I couldn't rely on other people. And I also couldn't show that I was vulnerable or needy or out of control. I mean, to be out of control, that's the worst thing ever.
Where do you think that message stemmed from?
Well, from being, 2.5, almost 3, when we moved, yeah, because I wasn't in control of anything. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of stuff comes back down to that. And of course, Mum and Dad, they did the best that they could.
Yeah.
So there's no anger there anymore. There was. But there's no anger there because now I understand they were doing the best they could in a situation that was, difficult. I mean, they were very young themselves when I think about it. So if I was 2 or 3, both of my parents were less than 30.
So you did the best that you could at the time. Yeah.
So they moved states with 3 little kids.
That's very difficult, by the way. I just moved. And my kids were like 9, 6, and 3, nearly 4. That was hard, but at least they were older.
Right. So we would have been less than 1, less than 1, less than 3, less than 5. Right.
3 kids is 4 and under. Yeah, that's really hard.
Yeah. So, looking back, I can really respect my parents and the fact that they, made that choice to move back to Melbourne so that we could have a Jewish education and all of that, but it definitely left its mark on me. I don't know about my brothers, but on me for sure.
Do you think you're still today affected by it?
Sure. You know, there are moments when I get triggered. There are moments when I feel insecure.
Yeah.
There are moments where, I mean, now I call it awareness. You know, when my gut instinct will all of a sudden be sending out these sort of sonar messages, you know, danger, danger.
Anxiety. That's literally, yeah.
So for sure, there are still moments like that, absolutely. Again,
So,
when I feel out of control.
what do you do now to help yourself when you reach that like insecure moment and the dangers you're talking about?
To begin with, I breathe.
Yeah.
Then I check in with myself to see what's going on. What is actually going on here?
So you use logic?
No, I check in with my body.
Okay.
Right, because I have different tools that I use with my body. So I check in to see if this belongs to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I
So
ask.
Aviva, I just want to say at this point, Aviva talks a lot about, does this belong to me? Aviva, can you talk about that? Because that sentence has really, really helped me. And I
Okay.
think it's going to help anybody who's watching this. Just talk about that. Does
Right.
this belong to me?
Who does this belong to? Is a
Yes.
tool that is part of the body of work of Access Consciousness. So it's one of their tools which I have adopted. Very often we are aware of things going on around us, and we always take it on as our own, right?
Yeah.
Because whose else could it be? But once you start to realize that we are energetic beings, and there's a lot of, we pick up on other people's energy. You know how if you walk into a room, like you're in your own place, you're feeling great, you walk into a room and you feel there's sort of like a funky energy going on.
Yes. Oh, yes, I get that.
Right? So
I
you
just
pick
want, can I
up.
add at this point that we went to view a lot of apartments, okay? And we moved to an area that's brand new. So most apartments we actually went to view, actually, we would have been the first people that lived there. But even that, I felt energy. I felt energy. And when I walked into this apartment, and we're the first people that's ever lived in this apartment, new building, new street, there was still energy.
Right, because it would have been the energy of the workers. It could have been the energy
Of
of
the
builders,
Baldira, how do you say Baldira in English? Owners,
the apartment
apartment
owner.
owners. Yeah, yeah. And actually, it turned out that our apartment owners are actually really, really nice people when we met them. So
Right, so that's probably also what you picked up on.
yes,
So
but definitely be about energy.
right, so often what happens is we pick up on this energy that we don't understand where it comes from. And if we stop and ask, who does this belong to? Then you'll realize that 97% of the time it's actually not yours.
So it's a
So
conscious decision to not take that within you.
yeah, it's a choice. Each time it's a choice. So I can be aware of, oh, okay, Talie's feeling anxious at the moment.
Yeah.
You're not, but just, you know, for example. So I can then stop and say, all right, well, if this is what's happening, do I want to deal with that? Do I want to take that on? Or can I just continue to be in my place of comfort and not even comfort, but know that that anxiety does not actually belong to me. So when I clear that energy, I can come back to who I am and be happy with where I'm at that moment. It kind of helps me come back to being present.
What do you do? What do you do apart from using like the logical side of your brain, saying, okay, this doesn't belong to me. I've recognized that this doesn't belong to me. This is her emotions, her issues, his issues, okay? And then you've made that conscious decision. I'm not going to take that person's.
It's not even, it happens much quicker than that.
Okay.
Right. It's more of, oh, okay, that's not mine.
Yeah.
I send it back. I
Okay,
just sort of release it back to the universe.
fine. So that's it's a
Actually,
conscious
it's
choice. Yeah.
very,
I'm
very
saying
quick.
for our viewers that have never heard this before.
Yeah.
Okay, like
It's
know
actually
your
very, very
process.
quick. It's sort of, you
Yeah.
become aware of the energy,
Yes.
and you become aware also of the fact that it's not yours. And then it's like, okay, send that back. If you wanted to, and it doesn't mean that you're not empathic. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you don't care about Talie feeling
You're
anxious.
just you're not taking it on as
I'm
your
not
own
taking it
emotions.
on as mine. Yep.
You are not responsible for other people's emotions. You're not. I always say this
Yes,
to people. You're not responsible for other people's emotions. Unless they're
exactly.
your kids. Be nice to your kids. Yeah. I
Yeah.
actually want to
So
add something in at this point that I have found that's very useful, and I actually assign it to a lot of my clients, is when there's something that you don't want inside of you and you're finding it hard to not absorb it, is to imagine yourself surrounded by some kind of filter or cocoon. And it's up to you who you let in or what you let into your own filter or cocoon.
yeah.
I like the word filter, some people like the word cocoon. And you imagine it literally in your mind's eye, imagine it around you, you know? And in your mind's eye, like inside the filter, it's you're safe. And it's your choice what, imagine like osmosis, your choice what comes in and your choice what goes out.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great tool to use. Yeah.
Um, Another tool that I use a lot, actually, and this sounds like counterintuitive, is
Mhm.
to actually let all of the walls drop down.
Yes, you've told me about this before. Tell us about it.
Um, well, you were just saying to put a cocoon around you, like if you need to feel
Yeah.
safe and secure. So that's one way of doing it. Another way is to ask the question, do I actually need a wall? Do I actually need to feel safe at this
Okay.
moment? And if I find that I don't need to feel like, feeling safe isn't the issue, if I actually relax all of these walls, all of these barriers, just let them go, push them down as far as they can go, then I've become very free, which means that anything that might be out there trying to attack me, I'm not talking about a physical attack like a punch, but anything that might be
Energy.
out there, an energetic attack, it actually just goes straight through. When you put a wall up, you feel this pounding all the time,
Yeah.
right? You have a barrier there, so there's something to push against. But if that barrier is gone, then there's nothing there.
Just like the wind.
It's air, it just goes straight past. So when I remember to use that, I don't always, but when I do remember to use that, then it just makes things much lighter
Yeah.
because there's no resistance then. It's like a rock in a stream of water, right? The water just keeps going anyway. You know, the water just keeps flowing over that rock. The rock doesn't have to do anything. So I sort of become that rock and just let
Yeah.
everything flow
Flow
past.
anywhere.
Yeah. So then there's no resistance, which means if there's no resistance, then I don't have to react.
And that's easier for your mental state, even your physical well-being.
Yeah.
Your shoulders are calmer when your body is relaxed.
Yeah.
Like it reduces cortisol levels as well.
Yes.
Stress hormone, which is the stress hormone, which can trigger anxiety when you're much calmer.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to backtrack for a second or something. Going back to your teenagehood.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to share with us? Is there any other memory? How did you cope with it back then?
I find that when I was about 16, I think,
Yeah,
I was introduced to a woman who was kind of in between my age and my mum's age.
yeah,
And so she became a very close friend. She was somebody I could talk to, somebody I could rely on, who wasn't my mum, because I didn't feel that I could trust my mum 100%.
yeah,
So she was somebody who I could talk to. So anytime I was having a real issue, I would talk to her. The other thing that I would do is I kept a notebook, sort of like a diary, a journal, where I would just write these random thoughts that came to me, usually just before I went to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I can see now that that was a way of helping myself calm myself down before sleeping. So just writing, and it was random thoughts, whatever came through. Just write until basically I fell asleep. So it was getting all of those thoughts, all of the anxiety, it's a great way to call it,
Yeah.
getting it all out of my head so that I could let the body relax.
You still write today?
No, I haven't written in that way for a long time.
Okay. Okay. Moving forward. Okay. Let's go to your, let's say, university years, if you went to university, or your 20s. Do you remember anxiety being part of your life at all at that stage?
I remember that I chose to go to a different school. Like for my last year of high school, I took myself out of where I was.
How old
I
were
went
you?
17.
Yeah.
I went to a different school, which just opened up my world in so many ways. It was beautiful. Then for college, for university, the system was in Australia, we had to choose 8 places that we wanted to study, 8, courses.
Mhm.
And I received my top choice, which actually is not what I wanted to do.
That's so interesting.
Mm.
So how was it your top choice?
Well, I realised was actually more of my mum's choice. It's something that she would have done, right?
Who does this belong to?
Right, but I didn't have that tool back then.
Yeah.
It would have helped me a lot if I had.
Yeah.
So I went to college, but from being in this school, which was it was co-ed, it was like a technical college, it was huge. I went basically back to high school because it wasn't a women's course or a women's college, but it was women who chose to do this course. So I felt that I'd gone backwards, right? And looking back now, I can see I was really frustrated. And after about 2 months, I wanted to leave the course. And I went and spoke to the counsellor there, and she was like, it's only 2 years. You're halfway through the first year, just stick it out. And I'm like, but I really don't want to be here. So I did stick it out. I don't think I ever completed the last lot of work that I had to do. So I never received the certificate from them.
Yeah.
And the day after I finished college, I went and got a job in a bank, which was
Yeah.
something completely like opposite to
Unrelated. What did you do in university?
I studied childcare.
Okay.
So
And you got a job working in a bank.
yeah.
Okay. So did you find that anxiety affected you anyway in that kind of in that part stage of your life?
I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
Right. So again, I was very angry. So if I'm angry, then you snap and you look for fault in everything.
Yeah.
Because you just can't. I wouldn't allow myself to be happy. I mean, I made a few good friends there. But getting there was a real pain because it was like, took me about an hour and a half to get to and from school every day from college, and everything was a real pain. So there's not a lot of joy. There's not a lot of joy. So because of that as well, then I must have been an absolute nightmare to be around. Because again, I didn't.
Amazing that you even recognize that. Some of us, it takes strength. It really takes strength and confidence to turn around and say that.
Well, I can just see that, again, nothing was right. So if that's the case, and if that's the record that's going on in your head, then you're pointing fingers all the time and judging all the time. And so that also just adds to the anxiety because nothing is good. So if nothing's good, then, what am I doing here? If I'm here, what am I, it was just this constant battle within myself. And then I was probably really angry with myself for listening to these people who said, just stick it out. And it's like, no.
But you're really young. You don't, it's very hard to, to even stick up for ourselves. Yeah, at the
Right.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. So that it was an interesting time, looking back at it. I don't think about it very often. So whereas, that year at Swinburne was the most amazing year,
Yeah.
going to college felt like, yeah, just
Wow.
totally, all my oxygen had been taken away.
That's literally like, that's how I felt with anxiety. Like I felt somebody had a rope around my neck and I couldn't breathe.
Yeah. So I would not have
Okay.
called it anxiety. Wouldn't, as I said earlier, it just wasn't
Yeah.
a word that was, around. But that's
I do. I
probably,
think back at like going back, I feel like the label anxiety has only become really known in recent years.
yeah,
Not
I
so
would
long
agree.
ago.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving forward, what about, let's say, 20s, 30s?
Well, at the end of my 20s, I made Aliyah, so I came to live in Israel.
Yay!
Yeah. And that's exactly 30 years ago, which,
Next week, isn't it 30 years next week?
yeah,
Happy anniversary.
thank you.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very stressful time
Yes.
leading. I was very confident in my decision, in my choice to come and live here. I knew that I was going to be living in at an Ulpan for the first 5-6 months. And I remember talking to another woman who was coming, she was going to the same program I was, and she was already, we were still in Melbourne, okay? This was in March in Melbourne. And she was really worried about where she was going to be living in December.
After the open. Yeah.
After the Auckland, but we hadn't even left Melbourne yet.
Yeah.
What are you worried about? So I couldn't get my head
Because
around.
everyone's anxiety triggers are different.
Right.
The
So I couldn't get
messages,
my head
story
around
that
it.
you got around. Yeah.
So I just knew that I was, leaving on the 28th or 29th, whatever date it was in Australia. And I knew my brother was already living here, so I knew he would be at the airport to meet me.
Okay, that makes it easier. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all I knew. And I knew I was going to be coming to Jerusalem to be in Ulpan.
Which Ulpan did you go to?
Ulpan Etzion.
Yeah.
So that's what I knew. And, I arrived in Israel with $500. And I figured at the time I'd give myself 5 years, because also coming from Australia is such a long way away.
Yeah.
And the tickets are so expensive that, I couldn't even imagine going back to Australia for a weekend. It doesn't happen. It takes 2
Not
days.
the UK. It's not the UK.
No. So I figured that, I'd give myself 5 years. So I thought 5 years is a fair amount of time to make something work.
And then 30 years later.
Still here. But it's look, every 5 years or so I start thinking, okay, is this still working for me? Do I still want to be here? What other choices do I have? What other possibilities are around? And so it's not like I'm here and that's it.
Yes.
I'll stop and I'll reassess and I'll see if, what else do I want to do with my life? And there's always the thought that I can go back to Australia if I want to. I can do that, or I could go elsewhere.
Eventually. Wow. Yeah.
So that gives me actually a sense of peace, knowing that this is not the end of the line.
You're not tied down. Yeah.
No, I'm tied down, mortgage and other things.
Okay. Yeah.
But if I wanted to, I could leave as well. I have choice. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really good that you see it like that, because you said earlier that like you felt out of control in your early life. So maybe do you find that like the fact that you can reevaluate and make the conscious choice that I do want to be here. Do you find that helps you? Helps the anxiety?
Definitely, because it also helps me. The way I look at it now is that every day is a choice.
Yes.
Right? Every day is a choice. And I'm not going to say every moment of every day, but every day is a choice. So I am choosing to be here. I'm choosing to live the way that I live.
Conscious choice, yeah.
Yep, it's a choice every single day. I'm choosing to eat the way that I eat. I'm choosing to, do the work that I do.
Yes.
So once you look at it as a choice, then it takes away the angst of being out of control or having to be in control.
Yes.
Because if I'm choosing this, then I can actually choose again. I can choose something else. If this isn't working,
helps to make you feel in control.
Yeah.
You
if this
own
isn't
it.
working, I can choose something else. Yeah, exactly.
I actually want to add to that sometimes in our lives, we are put, even when we set our healthy boundaries, we're put in situations that we wouldn't have necessarily, like we don't really want to be in. Or let's say I had a client actually some time ago, a friend of ours asked her a huge favor and she didn't really want to do it, but basically her friend needed to take her husband to hospital. He had cancer, he was really ill. So my friend could have said no, definitely, but she kind of really wanted to say yes, even though it would have been extremely difficult for her. So I said to her, make that a conscious choice. It's going to be difficult for you. It's going to be hard for you. You don't necessarily really, really, really want to do it, but you really want to help your friend. So make it a conscious choice. I am going to actively choose to help my friends and own that. And it becomes much, much easier to deal with whatever the outcome is, whatever will happen, because it's your choice. It's not like, right. I'm put in this position that I don't want to be with, and whatever happens, it's her fault or his fault or whatever. It's
exactly.
You're owning it, and it's much, much easier to be able to handle anything that comes up, especially the anxiety. Right.
And it also takes away, it actually takes away a lot of the judgment as well, because we can be so hard on ourselves.
Love yourself.
Like, why did I do that? Why did I say yes? Why did I agree? Or whatever.
We don't always know. Yeah.
Yeah. So we often beat ourselves up for things that, because we didn't listen to ourselves and we didn't choose what would have been the right choice. Right's not really the right word here.
Your inner gut, your inner intuition.
Yeah. Like sometimes we feel that we have to do things because we want to placate someone. Or we, you want to seem to be like a nice person.
Ooh, people pleasing. I have so much to say on that.
Yeah.
And definitely one way that anxiety shows up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've just learned that if I people please, I end up hating myself and beating myself up so much more than if I just say no. And I've learned also, you can't say maybe. It's either yes or no. Like there's a boundary.
Yeah. When we say maybe, very often people see that as like, oh, that's an opportunity for maybe she might actually say yes, or I can.
Or it's a yes. You've said maybe, that means yes. It's like, no, it's maybe. So I've just learned also that to keep my own mental health stable, it's yes or no.
No. Also, being in limbo can really, that's also anxiety triggering.
Sure.
You don't know. Also, when you go out, I think it's something very important to remember in terms of people pleasing. When you can't say no to people because for whatever reason, in terms of people pleasing, you're also people. You're also a person. And I say this a lot. I say this in a lot of my posts, and I say this to all my clients. I say this too. And I make it a real statement that when you're saying yes to something that you don't want to be doing, you are ultimately saying no to something that you do want to be doing. And whatever you say yes to, that is going to become your reality. That's going to become what you're going to go through, what your life is going to take you to. And your life, the way that it is right now, is the sum of the choices that you've made up until this date. So do you want that yes to be your reality? Is it going to trigger anxiety inside of you?
That's such a great question.
Yeah.
And, some people say, oh, well, you can't control it and da-da-da, and you've got to do the right thing. But the
What's
right
the
thing
right
for
thing?
who? The right thing for who?
Who defines what the right thing is?
Mm-hmm.
What might be right for you might be not right for me. What might be right for you might not be right for me.
Well, I find myself using this question a lot is, are you a priority in your life?
Exactly. Oh, I like that.
Because so often we're not a priority in our life. And then it's, are you prepared to be judged by other people for putting yourself first? Right? And that's a tough one. I think
people respect healthy boundaries, though. People respect boundaries.
I think they do. But again, boundaries wasn't in our lexicon way back then either.
Yeah, definitely as children. Definitely. I know I'm younger than you, but even me growing up, I remember, if your auntie or uncle said hug me, you hug them. You hug them. What do you mean you don't give them a kiss and they come and they pinch your cheeks and still remember my grandfather used to pinch my cheeks so hard, I didn't like it.
No. So there's that part of it too. But we didn't have. I think. I mean, also we grew up sort of post-war. I'm not that old, but there was still a lot of post-war feel to things in Australia, and we had to stand up when our teacher came into the room.
Oh, we had to do that as well.
There's a lot of discipline.
I remember that. We had to also stand up. Yes, yeah. Maybe it's a British thing. I don't know. Yeah. British colony. Yeah.
But there was also like showing respect. So what's respect, and how do you define respect, and how do you show respect? Whereas here, you don't have that. If we were on a bus and an old person came on, we would stand up for them on the bus to give them our seat, right? And you just don't have that here. You don't have that anymore.
I actually found that when I was pregnant, the people that got up for me were old women and old men.
Exactly.
Sometimes Bet Yaakov girls, like the religious-looking girls, definitely not guys.
And I actually find very, very rarely do.
Sorry, I didn't mean that as a sexist thing, but it's just saying my experience, honestly. Old men used to always tell me to sit down.
Yeah.
Shvi, at beherion, like sit down, you're pregnant. It's dangerous on a bus to stand. Yeah.
Whereas I find a lot of people, they walk around with these blinkers on. They're not interested in seeing what's happening with other people. They love the gossip of other people, but they're not actually prepared to see what is happening with them at that moment. And that's something that, it does trigger in me a lot of anxiety. On Monday, I was in Tel Aviv.
Yes.
And I was on a bus with a very good girlfriend. We haven't seen each other for ages, so we arranged to meet in Tel Aviv. And I think it was the first day of the summer holidays when all the high school kids had finished school. So they all went to the beach. And they were standing this close to each other, screaming at each other. And I'm like, noise for me anyway.
Teenagers. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was not fun.
That is definitely, but they're children. Children aren't aware of things outside of them. Even though they're teenagers, they're still children.
They are. They're children.
Yeah.
And they're very noisy children.
Aviva.
Yes.
Moving on. Okay. What age or what stage of your life, would you say that you realized that, would you be able to say, like, yeah, this is anxiety? Like, what age did you realize that you had anxiety? Like, you were actually able to label it. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I understand the question. Probably recently, actually. Fairly recently, in the last probably 5 years.
Wow. Okay. Tell us about that.
Well, again, it's because I would call things stress or pressure or anxiety wasn't the label. It just wasn't a word that I associated with. You know, does this make you anxious? Well, what does that mean? Anxious. Does it make me nervous? Does it make me fearful? You know, what does anxiety actually mean?
So how did you know that that's the feeling? How did you label it? Like, right, that's anxiety.
I don't know that I really did.
Okay.
I don't know that I really did. I mean, we grew up with the term depression.
I'm talking about like 5 years ago when you said that you were able to like label that feeling as anxiety. What made you realize that, okay, wow, that's anxiety. That feeling that I've been feeling, that's anxiety. What was it that like?
Again, I actually can't answer that question.
Oh, okay.
I probably had other labels. Like people would say to me, "Oh, you're depressed." And it's like, no, I'm not.
Mm.
It's definitely not that.
Yeah.
Or you're something else. It's like, no, not that either. So I don't know that anxiety, again, was a word that I was really connected to. But and that saying it like that shows a lot, because sometimes if you can't name something, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, it's only in the last few years that I've realized that being vulnerable is a strength, not a weakness. Whereas I always used to see that as a weakness.
Yes.
So if for me to say that I'm anxious, that was a sign of weakness. So that was just not going to happen. No, I'm not anxious. What are you talking about? You know, no
So
way.
when did you have, as Brene Brown, when did you know Brene Brown for sure, everybody who doesn't know her, when you started to label it and realize that actually vulnerability is courage and vulnerability is a strength, what impact did that have on the anxiety?
It gave it space.
Okay.
It gave it space. It actually, it allowed me to recognize it and to name it. So it gave me permission, actually.
Permission to.
Permission to be weak. Permission to say, to admit to myself, oh yes, this is anxiety.
So
Oh,
permission to be vulnerable, but with strength.
permission to be vulnerable, in that permission to see myself for who I am, actually, without mirrors and without filters, without veils in front.
How did that help you?
Well, it helped me see me for who I am. And in that respect, it's almost validating.
Yes.
And it's a sense of freedom in that I don't have to be putting on a show for anyone anymore. So if I'm not feeling good, if I'm feeling anxious today, I can say, hey, this isn't going to work for me. I'm not up to it.
Yes.
And so it's being honest. It's being honest with myself. And if I'm honest with myself, then I can allow that honesty to spread out to other people as well. It's almost by giving myself permission, I'm then giving other people permission to also express who they are.
Definitely.
So
Because as you
that's
said,
what
it's
it's
energy.
done.
It's energy.
And that's what it's done. It's given me permission to be me.
How have the people in your life around you responded to that?
Oh, well, some people have disappeared because they don't like the honesty. And that's actually something that has been always there in my world, is honesty. Like, I've always been very honest. People would ask me something, you'll get an honest answer. If you don't
Yes.
like it, then
Yes, that I definitely know about you.
yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of people don't like that. Well, they find that hard, and it's, you know, fair enough. So I know myself that I'm not everybody's cup of tea.
Which is fine. Nobody's everybody's cup of tea. Yeah.
No, and I'm not interested in pleasing everybody. And I've also learned my own boundaries, so I can say, no, this works for me, this doesn't work for me.
You found that's definitely helped for anxiety?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, because this way, as we were saying before, like if I say, yes, I'm going to come to an event, but it's just triggering me, how am I going to get there? What am I going to wear? Who am I going to go with? Who am I going to talk to? Who, do I need to put on some airs and graces that I don't have? Or am I in pain today?
Yeah.
Do I need to take pain meds before I go? All of that sort of stuff that goes on around it. And if I find that it gets too much, then I can just say, sorry, this doesn't work for me today. I'm not coming. And then the people say, oh, but yes, you have to come. And then I can still say, no, this doesn't work for me today.
Yeah.
So I'm putting myself first in this. This does not work for me. I'm sorry, another day or whatever.
Okay.
So it's I'm giving myself permission to look after me, however that looks.
That is very important.
Yeah.
Giving myself permission to look after me, however that looks.
Yep.
That's a really great message. Okay, so coming to today, okay, what are your anxiety triggers these days, today?
Noise.
Can you hear the drilling by any chance?
No.
Oh, you don't? Great. There's drilling. We've got drilling going on here.
Right. Okay. So noise, I mean, that's what I was saying about these kids on the bus.
Yeah.
They were just, it's like there are times that if I could, and if I hadn't been sort of on my way to get a train to come back to Jerusalem, and I knew that there was a particular time that I had to be there, I would have got off the bus. Because that was, it caused me to be anxious, yeah. So noise is one thing.
Do you know where that stems from? Like, why specifically that?
No. I think because it distracts me.
Okay.
It's a distraction. And if I'm being distracted, then I'm not focused and I'm not present. So it takes me away from being present.
Which is what you need for anxiety, in the present.
Yeah.
Okay, so loud noise. What else is an anxiety trigger?
When people try to control my time, meaning, okay, I had a client wanting to book in, and then she wanted to change the appointment and add something else. And I said to her, well, if I'm filling up to it and that, I'll make it work. And if I'm not, then I'm not. But she didn't know that I'd had an accident a while back, and she didn't know any of that. So, and I wasn't about to tell her about that. But here she was trying to, maneuver things around to make it work for her.
Yeah.
And for me, that's a huge trigger. It's like, who do you think you are trying to manage my time? No, don't tell me how to manage my time. I'm very capable of doing that. So when people try to do that, then that really triggers me. And then I find I get very angry. Again, it distracts me. It takes me away from being present. And that is...
You think that she was trying to control your time, though, or just trying to control something?
No. She wanted to, come and do what she wanted to do. So she was trying to make it work for her.
Yes.
But for me, it felt like she was trying to control my time. Right? That's where it takes me.
Doesn't belong to. Yeah. Anxiety trigger. Yeah.
And that's the anxiety trigger. Yeah. So somebody trying to control me, like, no, you can't do that. Yeah.
Anywhere else that it shows up in your life that you'd like to share with us?
Well, the whole sense of being out of control is a major anxiety trigger.
That probably comes from when you were 2 years old and moved.
It could be. If I want to really dig into it, then yeah, it could be from that. But there are things that, for example, I'm now in a lawsuit, and the lawyers, the whatever, nothing works on my schedule. It all works on their schedule.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you can either fight it and make yourself crazy and get very anxious, or you can kind of surrender, knowing that I don't have any way of controlling this now. I cannot control the outcome. I cannot. So going into hospital, right? Because I've had to go into hospital to do tests and blah, blah, blah. And I just know when I go to hospital, I'm on hospital time. So my time doesn't exist because I'm on hospital time, right?
That's an anxiety trigger?
It was.
Yeah.
Until I realized that, me getting angry or getting frustrated or getting anxious isn't going to make any difference. It's only going to affect me. It's not going to make my appointment come quicker or whatever it is. So I've trained myself to know that I'm going into the hospital, I'm on hospital time, whatever that means.
Yeah.
So I've learned to allow time and space for things. And again, it's giving permission to myself to be in that place.
Exactly.
So there's so it's giving myself permission to be out of control.
But that's really, you're controlling what's going on in your mind and how you take in the situation.
Maybe
controlling. And how you're responding to the uncontrollable.
I'm choosing how to respond rather than just react to something.
Exactly. Yeah.
So in a sense, I'm taking responsibility for my responses rather than just reacting and getting frustrated and angry and anxious because they're keeping me waiting. And it's
also, I think a recognition of realizing that we don't control everything, but we can control how you respond to situations. That's definitely within your control, much more than just being reactive.
Exactly. So that's why I say, the word responsibility is the ability to respond.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
I like that. Yes.
Yeah. So when you look at it, when you see it like that, then it's sort of, okay, well, what action can I take that will make it easier for me?
Yeah, I do that a lot.
Right?
I do that a lot.
So again, it's like giving myself permission to be present, to see what's going on, be aware of what's going on, and then choose my response to that.
Definitely. And that's definitely something that can help with anything mental, any mental illness, any mental issues, is like the knowledge of what can I do to help myself right now? I know when I was doing really badly at my lowest points, I would always ask myself, what could I do right now to help myself?
Yeah.
And then I literally became like a bull in a china shop to get it.
Yeah. If you can, if that's the action that is necessary at that time.
Yes.
I found also that there oh wow, the words just left me. Surrender.
You speak about that word a lot. Yeah.
There are times that I have to surrender to a situation because I can't control it, or it's like hospital time. You just have to surrender to that which means also it takes you away from those triggers. So by surrendering, it's my choice of how to respond to something.
It's like letting down the walls, as you said. Yeah. It's like letting down the walls.
Yeah. And then it doesn't say anything about me, meaning I'm not less because I'm letting this happen, because I'm surrendering to that. So you can still walk away with your dignity, so to speak, right?
By choice, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, Aviva, so we spoke about the anxiety triggers now. What do you do today to help yourself with anxiety?
Well, I go back to, who does this belong to? Yeah.
Okay. What else?
Well, there are times that I find that I can have a really, really, really busy week, and then I need time just to be on my own, just to regroup, re-energize. And that's very important to me, to allow that time. So, and when I don't have that, then I became very, very anxious. So it's allowing myself that time, that break, that time alone. And sometimes it can be, you know, sitting on the couch and watching television for hours. Sometimes that's what it looks like. Sometimes it's, you know, just taking myself out for a walk. And that would often be very early in the morning when there's not a lot of people around.
Yes.
So it's a time when I can just be with me, and I can let all of my boundaries, all of my walls down, and not have to feel like, what's happening, you know? So it's like a time when, or I'll have a bath.
Oh.
And sometimes I'll run a bath.
I want to say, I was watching this. Aviva has the most beautiful, amazing bath. I've been to your bathroom. It's gorgeous. The candles.
Yeah.
And now you've got lavender. Yeah.
Right. So sometimes, you know, I'll have a bath, and
I'm going to come one day to your house and I'm going to have a bath in your lovely bathtub.
You're welcome.
Wait for it.
And it's like I can run the bath and I can light the candles, and I might get into the bath and I can be there for 5 minutes. Like, okay, that's enough. And that's enough, you know. So it's like I listen to that as well. So it's like I tune in to see what it is that I require at that moment.
Yeah.
And I act on that.
Okay, do you have a message for anybody who's watching this and that they still feel that shame of having any kind of mental illness?
Well, again, shame is a distractor, right? So if you're feeling shame about something, then what are you not being present with? So shame is also a form of, you're allowing other people's judgment to take you away from being present.
Yeah.
So if you're allowing yourself to feel shame, and you might allow yourself to feel shame, and if you do, then that's your choice. Just check in and see, what is it that you're not really allowing yourself to feel or be at that time. So there is no shame here. You know, everything is allowed. I think it's more how you're choosing to respond to it.
Yeah. Thank you, Aviva. I'm going to add in something, a quick thing about Aviva. Aviva sells these amazing lavender pillows that I actually highly, highly recommend for anxiety. I really do. If you're the kind of person that likes them, like when my kids get, especially my 6-year-old son, who gets really like, I offer him the pillow and he knows. He goes in, he gets it, he lies down on my husband's bed, and he just puts it on his eyes. And it can really help to relax. And you can warm it up in the microwave. And it makes such a difference, and I highly recommend it. And Aviva is going to give me the link if anybody would like to buy one of her pillows and check them out. I personally really highly recommend it.
Thank you.
Coach. If you have anxiety or had anxiety and you're willing to be interviewed to share with us your anxiety journey and be part of the project to lift that shame lid off of anxiety, then please be in touch with me. My contact details of how to get in touch with me are going to be at the end of this video. Aviva, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Talie. To you. Bye.